Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Diego with the beautiful Karina, my lovely prometida. And we are, like you, in the K-1 visa process, and our NOA-1 letter is dated April 18th, 2022, and our NOA-2 letter is dated May 30th, 2023. And for you guys that love to count days, that's 407 days. So right now we are waiting for our National Visa Center welcome letter. And that's taken anywhere from 60 to 90 days. 89 days is the average, okay? So we're probably looking around the end of August, the first or second week of September, before we hear from the National Visa Center. But this video is about K2 visa applicants. K2s. What's a K2 visa? What is it? Come on along and I'll explain it to you. Briefly, a brief introduction. Like I said, I'm Diego. I live in the Panhandle of Florida, near Pensacola, north of Navarre Beach. And Navarre Beach is where we're going to get married. Captain Bill is our wedding officiant. And so he's already agreed to marry us. So those are our wedding plans right now. And we even picked out our restaurant. And Karina is from beautiful Caracas, Venezuela, the beautiful country of Venezuela. And she relocated to Bogota, Colombia as a legal resident in 2018. So she lives in Colombia. So I fly back and forth to Colombia to hang out with her. And the K2 visa, ladies and gentlemen, who's eligible for a K2 visa? Well, to obtain a K2 visa, okay, each child, this is for a child, each child must be unmarried and under the age of 21 years of age when they enter the United States of America, okay? So they got to be single and under the age of 21. To qualify for the K2 visa for your child, Mr. Beneficiary, you, Mr. Beneficiary, Miss Beneficiary, and your sponsor must both be eligible and qualify and meet the criteria for the K1 visa. So your sponsor and you, Miss Beneficiary, have to qualify for the K1 visa in order for your child to be qualified for the K2 visa, okay? And your sponsor must be a U.S. citizen, okay? So don't forget, K2 applicants, you have to be unmarried and under the age of 21, okay? And then you can accompany your mom or your dad to the United States with your new stepdad or stepmom, okay, using the K2 visa in your passport. Now, when you file for your K1 visa, Mr. Sponsor, you must include all children that your beneficiary has, okay? Even if they're not planning on coming to the United States of America, you know, they may be 18 and have a married life somewhere, whatever. You have to include them on the K1 visa. You have to tell immigration that you got, you know, a dependent potentially in a foreign country with your beneficiary, even if they're not coming to visit or to live with you. So if your beneficiary has kids, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor, if you do not disclose these children's names on the K1 visa application, when you get to the embassy interview, you could be denied the visa, okay? So include everybody. And it's normal when you fill out your K1 visa, Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor, you get your NOA-1 letter in the mail. You look on there and you don't see the kids' names on the NOA-1 letter, just your beneficiary's name. That's okay. It's normal. Remember, the kids are piggybacking off the K1 visa for their K2 visa. They are a derivative of the K1 visa, okay? And if applying later, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, the child's visa application, okay, must be made within 1 year of the date of the parent's fiance's visa was issued. So if you're going to bring your kids in the future, okay, you can do that, but you got to apply, and that K1 visa, the K2 visa is good for a year. Okay, they got 1 year to use it, or it times out. So what forms and documents are you going to need for the K2 visa for your children? Well, each family member has to have their own completed and filled out separate DS-160. That's the application for the K2 visa, okay, and the K1 visa. So if you got two kids coming on K2s, you got to fill out two DS-160s. And if the children are too young to understand on how to do it, Mr. Mom, Mr. Dad, you can help and fill it out for them, okay? They got to have passports, but all the kids traveling with you to the USA have to have their own passports, and they must also bring a photocopy of their passport bio page, which is their face and the signature, when does the passport expire and all that. And also, when you come to the visa interview, bring any previous passports with you with past visas, US visas or entry stamps in them, okay? So if you've been a tourist to America in the past, Miss K1, Mr. K1, and your kids, you have to bring passports that may have expired and you showing those visa entry stamps. You got to bring the children's birth certificates with you to the visa interview, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for the K2 visa. And if they're in a foreign language, they got to be translated into English by a certified translator. And if any of your kids were adopted, that's fine, but you must also bring us a certified copy of the final adoption decree, showing that you're kids. Now, if you are a K2 derivative and you live in Brazil, okay, you do not need a Brazilian police certificate if you're age 16 to 18. Don't need a police certificate, okay? However, if you lived outside of Brazil, so let's suppose you're a K2 applicant that lives in, you're Brazilian, you live in Brazil, but you lived in Colombia for a year. You got to get a police certificate from Colombia, okay? And this applies also to non-Brazilian citizens or dual nationals over 16 years of age, also who live in Brazil. Your K2 children, Ms. Beneficiary, Mr. Beneficiary, must have a medical exam, okay? All immigrants, visa applicants, no matter how old they are, whether they're just a week old or just turned whatever, you know, as long as they're under 21, as a K2 visa applicant, they got to have a medical exam completed by a civil surgeon approved by the State Department in your home country, okay, before the visa interview. And the K2 visa holder, so your kid gets a K2 visa, he or she cannot enter the United States before the K1 visa beneficiary, okay? So Mr. Sponsor, Miss Sponsor, you cannot bring your K2 children to the United States and then come back and get your K1 visa, wife or husband, future wife or husband. Can't do that, okay? And to successfully obtain a K2 visa, okay, each K visa applicant has to provide the documents that I mentioned, the completed DS-160, the medical exam. You're going to need two 2x2 passport photos, like police certificates from previous countries, if you've lived there for more than 6 months since their 16th birthday, and you got to have a passport that is valid for 6 months or more. Unless you're from Brazil, then it's going to have to be 8 months, and then if you're from Venezuela, you can travel on a K2 visa on an expired passport. You got to bring the birth certificates of the kids, translated into English by a certified translator, and the MRF receipt for when you pay for the visa fees. Now the DS-160 is free. There's no charge for that, but you got to pay a visa fee for each K2 visa child, okay? So that's it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Now, I'm not an immigration attorney. I don't give you guys legal advice. I don't offer any legal advice, okay? I don't work for USCIS, okay? And I don't work for the embassy, any embassy. But I do have 8 years of success, 8 years of experience getting successfully processed and approved 2 K1 visas and a spousal visa, okay? And you got to be patient during this process, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And soon you will be on a plane, Miss Beneficiary, with your kids, with their K2 visa in their passport, flying to America, okay, to be with their new mom and future stepmom and stepdad, okay? Don't forget, I do a live stream on Wednesdays at 5 p.m., Saturdays at 7 p.m., and Sundays at 11 a.m., where I will answer all your K1 and K2 visa questions for free. How about that? See you then.
Hasta la vista, baby. Hasta la vista, baby.